What's going on, everybody? Doc from Average Gamer Guys, finally back yet again. Some more Halo Wars 2 action. Today we're talking through a Jerome 1v1 Blitz deck guide. Been offline for just a couple of days. Sorry we haven't had stuff up. Just been a busy week for me and Sloth. For Sloth especially, still getting used to the new baby. But we'll have some more consistent content. Had some time freed up this weekend. So we're going to be putting out a couple videos, so stay tuned to the channel. So this is something that I wanted to put out, and I've said I was going to do for a little bit now, but I want to go in and I want to talk through my 1v1 Blitz deck for Jerome. And this is something that, I wanted to get some good testing. Sloth put up some great videos talking through just really good strategies. But those of you that have watched the channel for a while know I am a huge fan of the 1v1s, especially in Blitz. So we're going to jump into this here. I'm going to talk it through. I'm going to tell you why I like this, how this sets up for me. I've got about 6 or so games tested with this, and I think they are all victories. And I'm not saying that to pat myself in the back. I'm just saying that this deck has really worked for me. I've liked how it flows, and as with a lot of our deck guides, specifically mine in the past, I'm a big proponent of having a good energy curve, and I really do believe in 1v1s. You need to be a little bit more cognizant of your top end energy curve. So here's the deck right here. Let's go do the stats very quickly so you guys can see those. So you see I got the Special Operations Starting Army, which is a bit of a gamble. For the fact that you don't know what Spartan you're going to get. Now, what I have found that's always been helpful, though, there's very, very few starting armies that don't have some sort of vehicle that you'd probably want to take anyways. So very typically, the Spartan for me that you get at the beginning is going to just jack a vehicle, and essentially you get kind of a two for one with that ability. The capability to take a vehicle from the enemy, and then you're just doling out damage with whatever vehicle that is, and usually probably killing whatever else, at least something else that the enemy team has. And that's really how I use the starting army. I always send the Spartan here towards B, which is a very consistent point that people will contest because center of the map, it's a great place to go. And then the Jackrabbit for you there, overall is really good. Very dependent on who and what leader you're facing on the other side. Sometimes I'll stick it with the Spartan. A lot of times as usual, we'll go grab the initial energy cores for me, unless I can pop a Jackrabbit down myself, in which case sometimes they keep it together, or I'll use it to go grab a separate point. But you can see here a pretty good curve on the step up for energy. My average level sitting at about 3, just over 3 now, which is nice to see, as I've kind of been collecting some packs and working through that. But actually a 3-power deck here for me, which is very unusual for me specifically. I really like to have things on the battlefield, units that stay around. But for this deck, it really seems to work, and I think it works well. And really, it's not 3 powers. It's almost more like 1. Because the other 2 powers essentially give me the turret or a Spartan. So I'm still kind of pushing towards my unit to power ratio that is very typical for me. But it sets up pretty good. So you guys can see here the Jackrabbit, everybody knows. If you've been around the game for a while, this is what you need. This is what you're using to pick up energy. Keep it low, keep it to the low cost. Just go with that one. It's the best one you can do. So I won't explain too much on that. Now, the Marines, the Sniper, and the Veteran Cyclops, well, they all do their own specific thing. I'm a very big believer in hard counters, so I always want to have something that's good here against vehicles. I want to have the Sniper because I am seeing a little bit pretty consistent of the meta. Every probably 5th game or so, I'm seeing people use kind of more infantry spam decks is what I like to call them, where they're just calling in heavy amounts of infantry. The Snipers are a great counter for that, and the base Sniper too. Veteran Sniper, not a fan of, not worth it. We ran a unit comparison video, which if you haven't go check it out. We've got a great spreadsheet that you guys can use, which really breaks down the differences between the sniper and veteran sniper, and me and Sloth found that just not worth the extra investment on this one. And then just standard Marines. Now, back to my point, because I like to ramble, sorry about that. Those 3 units specifically focus around the Mastodon here. We've seen in the unit comparison, and I've seen in playing with this unit, by itself, not very good. Not very much damage at all. Hardly does really any damage, period. But it's essentially just a rolling tank. It's a rolling bunker, and you can throw those guys into it. And the fact that they can come in, and honestly, a lot of times the way I will use this will be to drop this in, sometimes pretty close to a contest of a point, although I like to have this at full health. Once it's at full health, I feel very comfortable dropping infantry units in around it, fatigued, and throwing them inside of this, because then, once you do that, they will continue to fight. They'll regain their health and go to full capacity to deal full damage, and you essentially are creating those units and turning them into rush units, which is really, really good. So those 3 units focus around this Mastodon specifically, and I very, very typically like to have a Sniper, Marine, and Cyclops mix inside of this. That's very key, because then anything that comes up to attack this, whether it be air, whether it be vehicles, or whether it be infantry, for the most part isn't really going to stand a chance. You're a little bit weaker to the air side of it, just because your Marines are the only ones that can shoot it in addition to the Mastodon. But they still do a pretty good amount of damage, and the fact that they can just do consistent damage in this thing, just really will not die, makes this awesome. So that's kind of the base setup for that. Vanguard Wolverine, you got to have the capability to take down air, and the rush on this thing and the extra damage it does, wholeheartedly worth it. So make sure you get that in there. Enduring Salvo was one of those that we played around with, and it was one of the test spots for me, because I honestly wasn't sure, to be really 100% honest with everybody. I wasn't sure if the damage on this was going to be good enough to warrant it being in the deck. And I will say, it's definitely got a place. And the reason I say that is, it's a good size AoE. It's just slightly bigger than the pad for a point. It comes in pretty quickly. There's not a ton of time for the enemy to react to it. And this really is one of my hard counters for, again, kind of those more spammy, heavier number of unit decks. The fact that it comes in quickly deals a pretty good amount of damage for 80 energy. It really can soften up a target for you, or really finish a fight for you if you have a heavy contest on a single point. And a lot of times in 1v1s, I need to do a 1v1 strategy video for you guys, but in 1v1 specifically, there are a couple key points to the game. You always got to collect energy. That's huge. You got to try to win the initial fight, which again is why I like having the Spartan here. The fact that you can steal a unit more often than not, which in turn usually allows you to win that initial fight. And then if they have a big push, or you're having one big contest for a single point with a good portion of the enemy's army, if you can win that fight, the game is pretty much over. And so this card specifically at 80 energy really helps you do that. Like I said, it can help you soften up a target, or help you finish off a group of units that you might be having some trouble with, and it's decent damage for 80 energy. So definitely consider this. I really like this card, especially in the 1v1s. And you do need a hard counter for those infantry focused decks, so that's it right there. Trooper Nightingale, I don't have to say a whole lot about this, guys. Put it in your deck. The extra energy is definitely worth it, and you get Last Stand too. Just a solid unit overall. Got to have something to heal. The Scorpion is one that you could probably actually change out, to be honest, but it's just such good overall, just baseline unit. Pretty hard to take down. Good damage across the board. It fills that slot nicely, although I don't nearly play it probably as much as you would expect. Victory Turret. This is one of those, again, I like the disposability of this. It lasts for about 2 minutes, almost exactly 2 minutes. You can, again, we did the unit comparison. The rally on this is pretty solid. But this for me can actually just be kind of a point contest. If you're in a really close game, you want to get some units in there, you can drop this thing in there. It'll survive for quite a while. It has a good amount of health, does a decent amount of damage, and will contest points. And honestly, especially later into a game, this can turn the tide of a fight for you pretty quickly, especially with that rally. So good power, something I'll cycle very, very often in the beginning of the game, but once you start to get to the mid-late game, very solid. You got to have the Vulture. If you've seen any deck guide I've ever done about a UNSC leader, you know you got to have the Vulture in your deck. This is the powerhouse card. One of my other very typical strategies playing UNSC is if I can get a Vulture after the first minute, 2 minutes of the game, essentially I'm calling in a Jackrabbit, and then trying to call a Vulture in is really my play. For the first little bit, depending on situation, obviously. This thing just, the amount of health, the Phoenix missile, and its regular damage, just so solid all around. A slow moving unit, so you just got to watch out for it, but a lot of times this is something that's actually going to crush pretty much anything that's brought up against it. So you got to have it. And then here, interesting that we're playing Commander Jerome, but we don't use the Command Mantis. Instead, we are using Omega Team. I really like Omega Team. Very solid. Again, a little bit of a gamble depending on what Spartan you get. But for me, I'm pretty much almost always going to use this to jack one of, the enemy's units. That's the whole play here. For 170 energy, these guys come in, they deal a good amount of damage. They have a good amount of health. They're very, very consistent as far as a legendary rarity and as far as a unit, no matter which one you get. And like I said, if I see an enemy player, the opponent play, a Vulture or some type of tank or some type of unit, a lot of times I'll steal Locusts. If I see them use any of that, if I can get a unit over, drop in an Omega Team, steal it, take that unit from them, then use it to fight and contest their point, and then have the Spartan on the back end. All around just really solid. So that's how I set this deck up. And again, for me, the base strategy, just get in, win those early points. You've got good hard counters literally to everything. You've got your Cyclops, you've got your Sniper, you've got your Vanguard Wolverine, and then you have a lot more kind of support type and assistant type leader powers, and then just good overall top end with your troops. And if you can win a little bit of that early fight, those first fights, stay consistent and contest the points throughout the game. I'll have a video coming up here pretty soon of a really close game that I ended up winning, where for the majority of the middle of it, I wasn't really doing a whole lot. I was just kind of building force. But then with this kind of deck, the fact that if you can win the energy war and you can collect more of that, more often than not, you're pumping out Omega Team and the Vultures and your Scorpions at such a consistent pace. It's just very hard to keep up with. So just a quick deck guide, 1v1 for Jerome. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you will end up using, and if you do, how it works for you, or if you've got a different build or different ideas, feel free. We always love to hear the feedback. Like I said, the only thing I would look that you might be able to swap out is the Scorpion here. You could put Commander Jerome in there. Trooper Warthog, not the biggest fan of. Maybe a Kodiak, that's the one thing I don't have with the siege units. But Enduring Salvo for me kind of fills that slot. And that's really it. Hornet, a solid unit. This might actually fit in here better than the Scorpion, just because it gives you a little bit lower energy consistency. But overall, like I said, the deck sets up pretty good. Been very consistent with it, especially after the balance change. And something I'm enjoying using. So check it out. Let me know. Like I said, love to hear your feedback in the comments or what else you're using as far as the deck specific to 1v1s. Or if you're a 2v2 or 3v3 player, definitely let us know down below. Hopefully this deck guide was helpful for you. I've been Doc with Average Gamer, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. As always, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Throw a like down for us to let us know that this video was helpful. And we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.